Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of Fat City Spinout. New arrivals. Listens from the collection. Give me a chance. Make me nice up the dance. 1980s dancehall reggae bringing us in. Courtesy of Little John. Little John, better known as John McMorris. Dancehall singer, came up on the sound systems as they did. Systems like Volcano, Kilimanjaro. Exemplified the spontaneity, the energy, the exuberance that characterized dancehall reggae. Who come to mash it up, couldn't stand a chance. Album called Clark's Booty, referencing the Clark's brand of shoes, then popular, the height of fashion in Kingston, Jamaica, and around the world. There's even a book called Clark's in Jamaica, chronicling kind of the fashion side of reggae music at this time. And that title kind of exemplifies the spirit of dancehall reggae, not talking about high-minded topics like black liberation, repatriation to Africa, but fashion, the excitement of being young and being in the dance. Little John, John McMorris, produced here by King Jammy and appearing on the US Live and Love label, which carried Prince Jammy's productions, soon to be King Jammy, and engineered in part by the late great Bobby Digital, who I did a video on earlier. Series of videos either about him or linked to his time in reggae. Was just announced that he would receive the posthumous OD honor from the Jamaican government, Order of Distinction, well deserved. Bobby Digital. Got that one from a online seller that I kind of keep an eye on, see what they've got. I picked up a couple of Dennis Brown albums from around the same time as that one, 1985, 1986-ish. Dennis Brown Revolution, from the same seller. This is on Zone Yvonne's special label, named after his wife. Dennis Brown, if you don't know him, one of the greatest singers in reggae. He's often called the Crown Prince of Reggae, as Bob Marley is the king. Dennis Brown is just under him. This is mixed studios, mixed bag of musicians here. Kind of collects a bunch of singles, I guess. A lot of big shots from him on here. Revolution, Get Myself Together, also known as To the Foundation, his cover of Bunny Wailer's Armageddon, Have You Ever Been in Love, a lot of his big tunes on here, maybe not one of his more well-known albums. And I got another one by him. This, I think, actually marks my 20th Dennis Brown album. I did a spotlight video on him quite a long time ago, very early on in my channel. I think it's one of the most viewed videos I've ever done. 2K views or something crazy like that. Also got the Brown Sugar LP from Dennis Brown around the same time, within a year or so. And this actually repeats a couple of the tracks from that previous album. Revolution is on here again. Have You Ever... Sitting and Watching. These are mostly Sly and Robbie Taxi productions on here, and indeed it appears on their Taxi label. Dennis Brown, Brown Sugar, kind of at the height of his game here, although in an LP sense, maybe starting to get a bit more patchy, but those are definitely collections of very strong singles from him, from the Crown Prince of Reggae. Another one I picked up from the same seller, not reggae, Yellow Magic Orchestra. This is a group I've heard a lot about of the last few years, been kind of curious about. Yellow Magic Orchestra, formed by Hiromi Hosono, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, kind of a very influential figure in modern Japanese music. Also Ryuichi Sakamoto, I know is well known for soundtracks. Inspired by Kraftwerk and a lot of the electronic instruments that were available at that time in the late 1970s, synthesizers, sequencers, drum machines. They formed Yellow Magic Orchestra to kind of explore Similar textures to what Kraftwerk were doing in Europe. This is actually US pressing on the Horizon label from 1979, Yellow Magic Orchestra. Apparently the Japanese edition of this has a different mix. Yellow Magic Orchestra, so electro pop, computer game, which has these kind of early video game arcade type sounds, was kind of a surprise hit on the British charts. And side two, they get into more of a disco feel with some kind of breathy, cooing female vocals and more of a dance beat. And there's kind of a satirical edge to their music as well, as computer game brings in this classical motif and plays around with some of kind of the stereotypical Japanese sounding riffs and themes that you might expect in say film, but they're playing around with it in kind of a sardonic way. Yellow Magic Orchestra, electro pop. Hiromi Hosono, I also picked up a couple of his solo albums. As I said, kind of an important figure in Japanese music. Started out in a psychedelic rock band in the late 1960s as bassist in the band April Fool. Went through various bands after that through the 1970s in different configurations of styles and genres, kind of a musical chameleon. I got a couple of CDs from him from Light in the Attic Records. Hosono House, from the early 1970s. This one is kind of Neil Young, Crosby, Stills and Nash style acoustic rock, kind of a very folky vibe of that was common in American music at that time. He was very influenced by American music, but just a few years later, he would put out Koshin Moon, which was conceived during a trip to India, was supposed to be something, utilize something of ambient sounds, found sounds. They did do some of that, but it kind of evolved into more electronic textures and kind of took a left turn in the production process. And then shortly after that, he would resurface with Yellow Magic Orchestra, fully embracing the electronic technologies of the time. Keeping on the Japanese tip, I sprang for these two compilations also from Light in the Attic Records, which had been tempting me for a while. Pacific Breeze, and this is actually colored vinyl edition. Nice tricolor vinyl there, and it's got liner notes with pictures of all the albums and details on all the artists. This is a compilation of city pop, which is kind of an amorphous genre that emerged in Japan in the late 1970s and through the 1980s. I also sprang for the second volume, which just came out this year, Pacific Breeze 2. Not quite as strong as the first one, I would say, but still worth hearing if you enjoy the first one. And this is on kind of a lovely marbled purple vinyl from Light in the Attic Records, Pacific Breeze. Again, compilations of city pop, which is defined as pop, AOR, album-oriented rock, and boogie from 1972 to 1986. City pop, kind of not really musically cohesive. It's more of the attitude, the feeling, a feeling of optimism, kind of an upbeat mood as Japan was enjoying a wave of economic success with their leading edge in electronics, automotive, and all things that they were exporting at that time to the West, but also absorbing musical influences from the West. So you hear a lot of kind of smooth, soft pop, what you would probably call yacht rock now. Also a lot of jazz, a lot of soul, a lot of funk on those albums. And it's just exotic stuff. I've kind of bought the CD of the first one just to try it out, and then ended up springing for the vinyl. It's great driving music, very upbeat. You've got these kind of exotic song titles, mostly in Japanese. Midnight Driver, Subterranean Futari Bachi. I have no idea what that means. Not even going to attempt. Most of the artists named. Coffee Rumba. What's another good one I like? Lady Pink Panther. Just very exotic stuff, but fun listen, very accessible, very upbeat, funky, lots of funk, lots of jazz funk on those albums. just a fun listen. As I said, Fat City Spinout. This is my new series of videos showing new finds, but I also want to showcase some listens from the collection. So some other ones I have listened to recently. Kamasi Washington, Harmony of Difference. Pulled this one out again recently. I actually listened to his all three of his albums. Was the first one, The Epic, and then Heaven and Earth was kind of the one that came after this. This came in between, more accessible than his other ones. His The Epic and Heaven and Earth are like multi-day listens for me. Very expansive. This is a single disc, more accessible, more concise. Was listening to this on a rainy fall day. Kind of went really nice. Nice to hear that more concise side of Kamasi Washington. What did I just listen to? Johnny Clark. Was just listening to some Johnny Clark today. Bunny Lee Productions. I did a spotlight video on Bunny Lee a while back. Passed away. This is all Bunny Lee Productions that appeared on the US Clock Tower label, which was a label put out by Jamaican Brad Osborne, right there with Johnny Clark. Rare photo. Johnny Clark. I don't know if this is really a proper LP or just collects singles. It does collect singles that I know are on other studio LPs, which was kind of Brad Osborne's motif. He owned a record shop in Brooklyn, very influential record shop called Brad's Record Den, which was patronized by Kool Herc, Grandmaster Flash, African Bambaataa. All those pillars of early hip-hop would dig through his crates. He was kind of a leading importer of reggae into the US at the time, as well as having connections back on the island and releasing product on his labels, like Clock Tower. But he had a habit of doing overdubs, pulling together different releases from different producers and kind of making these hodgepodge releases, which is kind of confusing to a 21st century collector kind of perspective, but I guess made sense at the time. He wanted exclusive product that nobody else had, so he would kind of do his own overdubs and reshuffle things around, so he had something nobody else had at the time. The late Brad Osborne was murdered in the 1980s in New York in mysterious circumstances. The Clock Tower catalog was later absorbed by the Abraham label out of Canada, which is dubious legality, let's put it that way. So that was a listen today. Bunny Lee, Flying Cymbals goodness from Johnny Clark. Hopefully it's not too bright. Taking advantage of a rare sunny day. Last couple of ones here. I'm going to try to keep these videos a little more approachable, a little more casual, but more focused, and mix in some listens from the collection as well as new arrivals. Mix it up. This is a new arrival, We Out Here. This is a compilation from the Brownsville Records label of the UK jazz scene, the burgeoning UK jazz scene. It's kind of a primer or introduction to some of the key artists. You've got Meisha, Nubia Garcia, who appears on quite a few of the tracks and in several different groups as a player. She's over here, and then she's here again, and then she's in this group here. She plays on basically the majority of the tracks on here, as well as having her own solo track. Just showcases the diversity of the UK new jazz scene with the different influences of Afrobeat, electronics, free jazz, just kind of the musical melting pot. A lot of players kind of cross-pollinating, playing with different configurations, different groups. Cool primer on the scene. And I've talked quite a bit about Chewbacca Hutchings. I think he curated that collection. I also went back and picked up his first album as Chewbacca and the Ancestors. I did show the more recent one, We Are Sent Here by History, a while back. This is their debut from 2016, Wisdom of Elders. Doesn't quite have the apocalyptic, ripped from the headlines feel that second one does. It's more on a kind of free or spiritual jazz tip, recorded in South Africa with primarily South African players and these pounding drums, the occasional kind of chanted vocals. It's quite intense at points, I would say. Chewbacca Hutchings, Wisdom of Elders. So that is what I've got for you today, guys. Probably almost have enough for another video. I'm just gonna try and keep them a little bit more concise. A couple of 45s I picked up from that same seller I keep an eye on. Sugar Minot, Vanity, hopefully you can see that. Studio One, one of my favorite tunes by Sugar Minot. Comes in a nice Moody's record sleeve. Another record shop that was in the Bronx, New York, back in the day. Maybe it's still around, I'm not sure. Also got another Studio One classic. I might start picking up more 7s, more 45 singles from Reggae in more of a selective way. There's lots of classics I'd like to have in the collection, and in a lot of cases, the LPs are out of reach, rare, expensive, but sometimes you can pick up the well-known 45s, the classics, reasonable. The Bassies, things that come up to bump. They didn't ever put out an LP. This is kind of one of their more well-known tunes. Nice blank label pressing from Studio One. Versions by the Sound Dimension. Plays very nicely. Sugar Minot one, so-so, not too bad. Not too shabby by Studio One standards, but the Bassies one is pretty good. So that is what I've got for you today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. And there will be more updates coming down the line. Cheers.